Do we need to change our thinking on how strategic plans come together and evolve? James?
We do. I think the ability for leaders and owners to come together once a year and do a 5-year plan or even a 3-year plan, and then just think they can come back and check in a year later and go, oh, we'll just tweak it and keep going. I just don't think it's realistic anymore.
No.
Because you don't control as a company what your customers are doing,
No.
and you don't control what your competitors are doing, and you don't control the rate of change of the tools that you can potentially deploy. Something that didn't exist 5 years ago, didn't exist 5 months ago, now could be a game changer for you. So
Welcome back to the advisory deck on location in Victoria Park, Adelaide this morning. You can't see it, we'll show you a shot later, but it's a gorgeous sunny morning. And once again, I'm here with my colleague James McGill from Chatham Capital. How are you, James?
I'm good, thank you.
And we're riffing on all kinds of business leadership topics, and with the hope of adding some value to you and your business in this discussion and beyond. And one of the topics we've been talking about is, are 5 to 10 year strategic plans a thing of the past? Are those roadmaps to what success will look like and how we're going to get there over a longer period to set, govern, look at, and then come back to it a 5 or even longer year basis? Are they dinosaurs? Do we need to change our thinking on how strategic plans come together and evolve? James?
We do.
Okay.
Next topic.
Short episode, this one. Maybe unpack that a little.
Okay. I think if we go back, when I started in thinking about doing strategic plans, and it was 20 plus years ago, if we think back then, pre-internet, pre-technology, the rate of change was much slower. The ability for a company from the US or Europe to compete in Australia was much harder. There was tyranny of distance and time zones and so forth. We fast forward to 2020, and you can start a company from your laptop on your desk that realistically can be delivering services and competing globally, and you can go up against almost any company you want. So that rate of change and the ability for a startup to compete means that a 3-year plan now, I think almost, we talk about 5 and 10 year plans. I think a 3-year plan is ambitious. I mean, COVID is a once in 100-year event, hopefully. No one would have put COVID on a plan last year and said we're going to have to deal with a global pandemic, right? That stuff, we're not talking about, sort of trying to figure out that. But if we go back to 2017, the world is quite different now than it was then. And in 3 years' time, it'll be different again. And I think the ability for leaders and owners to come together once a year and do a 5-year plan or even a 3-year plan, and then just think they can come back and check in a year later and go, oh, we'll just tweak it and keep going. I just don't think it's realistic anymore. A 3-year vision of where you want the company to be is something else. That's I mean, you need to have a goal of where you're going. That's your compass. That's how you point the team together. But I think saying, hey, this is how we're going to actually do this, and we'll set it and forget it. No hope. No hope now.
And I think we cast our minds back to the Japanese 100-year plans that organisations used to have. Today, with the exponential pace of change, not just in technology and how technology is disrupting things, but also consumer and employee appetites for change as well. We are seeing a short-termism in so many facets of life. And so while it's one thing for an organisation to say, well, it's really important that we think longer term, because heck, we simply can't be running tactically all day long. We still need to be cognizant of the fact that any document that we frame up that says this is how we will get to where we want to go in 5 years' time, know that document will just fade in the sunlight incredibly quickly. And so, as iterative thinking is now the norm, we're okay, certainly from startups, but also from large organisations. We will keep evolving, we will keep changing as we learn. We're organic, learning, breathing organisations. So any strategic planning process, and they're two different things as well, strategy and plans, that has to bear that organic nature of business in mind, right?
spot on. You hit the nail on the head. And I should just clarify. I think we're talking here about companies that are smaller companies, family businesses and others. And if you're a large global company, working on physical assets, mining sites or something else, you may have to have plans that are much longer term, because you've got an asset that has a lifespan of 20 years. Like you can't do a 1 year plan. You don't stop mining, very quickly because of a change in something. So we're talking here really about small businesses and family businesses. But I think, and for them, they are more nimble.
Yeah.
I think maybe we'll come and talk about the process of strategic planning and what we mean by planning in a moment. But that's really the target market we're here addressing. It's not the large global companies that are got workforces of 30,000 people. They are a different beast. They do need to move differently in different time periods, because they are just so large and they set their projects at such a long scale that they'll need to tweak as they go. But that's not what we're talking about.
No, but even then, James, I think there's still examples of where really large, I've worked with $100+ million organisations that if I thought about what their strategy and their strat plan looked like 5 years ago and what it looks like today, it's unbelievably different, because the nature of their market, they weren't in kind of mines and physical assets. But I think, again, your point about, what you probably do need to be pretty consistent and clear about is that longer term sense of purpose for your organisation. You call it a purpose, call it a mission, whatever you like, and also broadly where we would like to be. And this is where things like Three Horizons frameworks kind of come into their own. Progressively as we look out towards, beyond Horizon 2 into Horizon 3, that 5+ year time frame as well, it just gets blurrier and blurrier. And that's okay. Keep coming back to an evolving plan at a regular basis that keeps looking that little bit further out. But narrows focus onto tangibly, crystally, what can we do in the shorter term to try and get one step closer to that longer term place that we'd like to get to.
Spot on. I think that's where, I think when you, Troy, you run a lot of workshops that are strategic planning workshops, and I know your approach isn't turn up on day X with the team and you somehow create a strategy in isolation, sitting in a room somewhere that then gets magically deployed. Right? It just doesn't work like that. And I think the companies that do it best and the consultants that do it best are ones that go, right, we've got to make decisions about strategy, and those decisions can get made in a day, but that means you've done a lot of work beforehand. You've done your market research, you've spoken to customers, you've done your honest, legitimate internal reviews around your capability and capacity. I think where a lot of this falls down. People go, well, we can shoot for the stars. We don't have the budget to reach it, but we'll just ask our team to make it happen. So these conversations that set you up for failure, I think. I think that's the approach. But that personally I like is that pre-work you do, and then you come together and you almost end up pitching and saying, well, here's what we can do. Here's what we should be doing. Here's what our competitors are doing. But the pre-work's been done, so you don't spend hours debating something. You've got the work. Then you can set the strategy cohesively. But part of that, and I think this is where a lot of this falls down, is that people go, right, all right, great, we'll see you next year. That's not how it should be, right? You should be going, okay, do we check in quarterly? What sort of reporting do we get? How do we make sure that we don't have a year that goes by and we said, we set that plan, things changed, we didn't adjust, well, we got halfway through the year and we said we're going to do 100 of X and we've done 5, but we just ignore that and keep going because we'll make up the other 95 in the next 6 months. I think there are so many opportunities for people to get good strategic plans that are even rolling 1 years with a fixed point on the horizon, like you were saying, but rolling 1 years, but they're shorter and sharper because you don't control as a company what your customers are doing, and you don't control what your competitors are doing, and you don't control the rate of change of the tools that you could potentially deploy. Something that didn't exist 5 years ago, didn't exist 5 months ago, now could be a game changer for you. So I think that continual talking about it, and saying, it can be something, if you set the process right, it can be something that isn't time consuming but can be really powerful, but please don't make them 3-year plans and set and forget. It's just not worth the time.
And I guess what I see is an increased melding of strategy, planning and governance processes, where once upon a time governance was this idea of we will sit down, we will look at the plan, are we doing what we said we were going to do, what needs to be adjusted, okay, come back and let us know how you're going in another X months, X years, whatever that looks like. Now with iterative thinking, with changes that fundamentally alter, well, okay, that strategic path that we thought was going to be right, it's now looking like disruption, whatever reason, means we need to rethink that. So having a little like performance reviews.
Yes.
Once upon a time we had annual performance reviews for staff, and now that's kind of...
Weren't they fun?
Well, and now, any HR person worth their salt says that's not the way we go about this anymore. It's got to be more frequent, it's got to be more regular. It's got to have a longer term touchstone, something that we keep reflecting on. And I think this is the other piece for me, reflection. The pre-work for any good strategy workshop should be about taking time, thinking deeply, really reflecting, so that we can come together in a finite time span, share our perspectives, make a decision, and then move on and come back and review and recalibrate on a more regular basis. I think you're right. I think that's the way strategic planning processes are going to need to keep evolving.
It's not the 2-day off-site workshop, everything's solved and sorted and everyone agrees and the business just miraculously changes and becomes successful. Not how the world works anymore.
No.
It doesn't work for anything like that anymore. It's just there's too much going on, too much change. Short, sharp. It doesn't have to be cumbersome.
Yes.
Doesn't have to be expensive.
No.
But that's I think that's how we view the world from this. That short, sharp, and shiny can be the way to move forward.
Yeah, and look, again, stress the importance of having regular come-together conversations, albeit doing some of them at Zoom level at the moment as we are, but they're really, really important. It's the chance to, create collision spaces for thoughts, perspectives, experiences, ideas, for better decisions to be made. So back to our original question, are 5 to 10 year strategic plans a thing of the past? I think as we did them years ago, yes. But the idea of having 5, 10 plus year visions and mapping out a roadmap to there, they're not dead, but they do look quite different to how we used to do them, right?
Spot on.
Yeah. All right, well, this is a space that we spend a fair bit of time in. If you want to have a conversation about how you're evolving your thinking and approach to strategic planning, ambulances in the background, exercise balls down the front here, please get in touch with us. We'd love to have a conversation. Maybe you want to come and sit and riff with us on the advisory deck or off camera. It's a support service we provide. Details down the bottom here. James, as always, thanks for your insights.
Good fun. Thank you, Troy.
Glorious morning out here on Victoria Park on the advisory deck.